Welcome to Hard Knocks Coding. My name is Brandon, and in today's video, we're going to be creating an ASP.NET Core app that's minimal, and we're also going to be adding an Angular front end. We're going to be keeping these applications separate so that we can send one half to our backend developers and the other half to our front end developers. We also get the added benefits of using VS Code for our front end work, which is far better than Visual Studio's, as it doesn't have as many of the bugged out errors, and it already comes pre-set up for most of the front end work. The resources we'll be using in this video are Node.js, Visual Studio's 2022, and VS Code. Instructions on how to install that will be in the description. So to start up, let's make sure that Node is correct. So we'll do node -v, and we'll check that version. And if you don't get a version, then you need to install Node.js. We'll update npm install -g npm. That's going to update npm. Then we'll go ahead and install the Angular CLI. We'll need this for tools and building the Angular project. So it'll be npm install -g @angular/CLI. Once that's done, we can start on the back end. We'll open up Visual Studio's 2022 and create a new project. We'll want an ASP.NET Core app, but we're going to want it empty. So the ASP.NET Core empty project. Okay, and I'm going to create it on the desktop. I'm going to call this ASP.NET Core Angular Minimal. And then I'll call my actual project API. And I'll have it configured for HTTPS and .NET 6. Okay, so now that this is open, I'm just gonna go ahead and build it and make sure that it works. Okay, we get hello world, which is our expected output here. So what's going on here? We get a builder, we get an app, and we map the get for hello world. So the root will return hello world, and then we'll run. So in our case, I want an API call, so I'm gonna map a get. I'm gonna do API/status, and then I'm gonna point this to a new dynamic. Oh, new dynamic, and this will do status is equal to online. So this is just for testing to make sure that both of our ends are wired correctly so that we can launch off of this point at any other time. I'm going to go ahead and test this endpoint. So I'll just do /API/status, and I'll check that the JSON response is correct. Close this down real quick. Okay. So this is optional, but I'm going to go ahead and get the browser to stop popping up because I don't need it for anything. It's just going to be an API on my end. So in profiles API, which is the name of the profile, I'm going to go ahead and make sure launch browser is false. What I'm also going to want to do is copy this HTTPS location. I'm just going to store that in Notepad for later for myself. That should be it for the back end. Now I'm going to go ahead and run this, get the console, and I'm going to move these to a different tab so I don't have to focus on them right now. Now we're going to start working on the Angular site. So I'm going to go into my folder where my API is, and I'm going to type in ng new, and mine's going to be called UI. I'm going to say no to adding the Angular routing because I'll be adding it in a future video. You can choose yes or no. I'm also going to pick CSS. You can use any of these, and we'll let the package get installed. Okay, once that's done, I'll cd into the UI folder, because in here I want to type a command, code. That's going to open up Visual Studio's code instance in that folder of ours. So I'll go ahead and save a workspace. I'll just leave it in the directory it chooses, and now I'll have a ui.code.workspace. go ahead and open a terminal in VS Code, and then we'll do npm install, just make sure all the packages are installed. And then we'll do an ng serve watch. Yes or no on Google Analytical Data. Okay, now that it's done, just control left click to open up the browser. And we've got this Angular template to start with here. Okay, so now we're gonna need to create a service. So ng-gs, and I'm gonna call mine main. That'll be in source app, and that'll get created here. In app component.html, I'm going to clear everything out of here and just write hello world. And in app component.ts, I'm going to create a constructor that takes that main service, private main service, main service, so that I can have that injected into the app component. I'm going to add some properties into app component for debugging. So public status, this will be a string. I'm going to name this loading. And we'll do public model any and public error. And that'll also be an any. Then I'll make app component implement on init control period implement interface, and it'll make a function similar to this, and I'll just clear out the error. We can also get this system to build while we're working. So I can have two PowerShell instances here. I'll set this first one to do the serving and the watch, and I'll use the other one to add in additional components if needed. Okay, so we're gonna go into the main service, or the, so we're gonna go into the app module.ts, and we're going to import HTTP client module from at Angular /common/HTTP. We'll want to make sure that that HTTP client module is imported. To make sure that that HTTP client module is imported into our app module. We'll go into main service and we'll do a private HTTP service, HTTP client. Oh, that was wrong. We'll go into our main service and we'll add a private HTTP client, HTTP client. And it should auto add it up here. If it doesn't, you'll have to import it manually. Then we're going to create a custom get method. So this will be get t. It'll take in a URL, which is a string. And it's going to return an observable t. Again, observables from RxJS. It should auto import, but if it doesn't, you'll have to add it up top. We'll have this return this.http client.get. We'll pass in the URL. And we'll set that to return a type of T. Now this adds an additional problem from earlier about our URL. So we'll copy this from the notepad we had. We'll copy that from the instance of notepad from earlier. And we'll go public host string, and we'll set that to the local host. I'm gonna put a slash in mine so that all the URLs that I bring in won't have that. And it'll be this dot host plus URL. Okay, now we'll add some statuses to the app.component.html. First off, a div ng-if this dot status is equal to loading. I'm gonna make 3 of these. So we're gonna have a loading, an errored, and a loaded. So if it's loaded, I want this .model, and I'll pipe that to JSON so that we can see it. We'll use a pre, so it'll make it pretty. And I'll put a label up here called model data. I'm gonna copy most of this code for errored and do kind of the same thing, error, and I'll use the error. And while loading, I'll just do loading, please wait, period. Let's go open this site back up so we can see what it's doing. Okay, so here it is. It just says loading, please wait. Nothing's really going on here. So what we see here is it's loading, please wait. Nothing's really happening. So to fix this, let's get it to load. So we'll do this.main service.get, and we're gonna use that API status from earlier. We're gonna do .subscribe, and we're gonna feed this an empty object. When we get data, next, we'll have to pipe that into a function. If there's an error, we'll have to pipe that also. And finally, when it's complete, this doesn't take any parameters. So when that happens, our status is gonna be equal to loaded. When we get model data, this.model should be equal to n. And when there's an error, we kind of do both. So I'll just copy these lines of code from here. E, error, this.error is E, this.status is error d. Let's see if I can zoom out here. Okay, zoom out a little bit. So we see that our site has some error data. It's not really easy to tell. Well, first off, there's a problem right there. Like earlier, no slashes. Okay, so this is actually working. Let's pull it in here. It says it's online, but for some reason, we don't have any data here, which is strange. To fix this problem, let's go ahead and look in the inspector, and we see that it's a CORS issue. So that's because we're accessing localhost 7123 from 4200 on a client, which is not allowed by standard CORS principles. So let's go ahead and fix that. We'll jump over to our API, and we need to add some CORS stuff in. So just after builder, we'll do, I can close this. We'll do string localhost policy is going to be equal to allow localhost. The name doesn't really matter because we're just using this to identify the policy. That's localhost is fine. Then we'll do builder.services.add CORS, C equals, and C.add policy, the localhost policy, and then we'll need a new builder. I'm gonna call mine P. So P dot with origins, and we'll have to put that localhost 4200 or whatever address you had in here. And we'll do allow any header and allow any method, or what you'll need for your application specifically. Okay, once that's done, after app is built, but before we do our gets, we want to do app.use CORS, and we'll do the localhost policy like so, and run the API. Reload the page here, and I actually get the model data. So you now have a minimal Angular UI frontend and C# backend. In future videos where we discuss some of the concepts about this system, we'll go ahead and use it from this point on. So thank you for tuning in. I will see you in the next video.